Ascension symptoms are happening to all of us all day, every day. It's important to be able to spot the signs around us as well as the physical symptoms that happen to our body so that we understand when it's time for a new vibrational readiness. Welcome back to the channel. It's Dr. Angela Cudger with Legacy Holistic Health Institute. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, we're going to specifically discuss the signs and physical symptoms of ascension and what you should be looking for and when to understand these specific signs. Now, I'm going to state the disclaimer here. I am a medical provider of several different kinds of spaces in the medical field. However, if you are experiencing some of the symptoms that I list here or speak about in this video, you definitely still want to speak to a medical practitioner, namely your primary care physician, just to make sure that you are actually having, you're not actually having something that requires medical intervention. Now, if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of the conscious community. We do hope that you find something amazing in this video. This channel is dedicated to the health, wellness, and spiritual evolution of women over 40. If you're not a woman or you're not over 40, it's just fine. You can still get the information and pass it on to a woman over 40. The majority of the content is geared towards those individuals that this channel is dedicated to. Now, if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for all of your support. You guys know that I love you, and every single thing that you do, from subscribing, turning on your notifications, liking a video, as well as commenting, all mean the world to me. Okay. And so I hope you find this video not only entertaining, but insightful. I'm not just going to be giving you information about ascension symptoms, but I'm also going to be sharing a little bit about my story and how I embarked on my ability to be a metaphysician as well. And so I will touch on some spiritual gifts. Not going to go too much in detail with that, but if you want a video going over the top spiritual gifts and different things that might be going on with you, I can do a video about that too. Tell me about that down in the comments, and I'll be glad to share the insight that I have. Let's get into spiritual ascension symptoms. The first thing I want to talk about is, what in the world is spiritual ascension? Well, it's pretty simple. While you're here on earth, there are things that you need to do. Now, some gurus, scholars, spiritual teachers, shamans say that when the earth needs help, some souls, us, me, you, people watching this video, others on the earth, raised our hand and said, I will go to earth and I will help out. I will go and I will create something for humanity that will help them continue to ascend, meaning go higher, get smarter, be greater, do more. Okay. And so if you're here and you're on this planet, you know that you are here to do something specific. It has also been said that you are doing something that no one else is going to do. So you might find people doing similar things. You might hear people who might look similar or act similar, but no one is you. No one is going to do exactly the thing that you come here to do in the way that you're going to do it. So even if you say you thought something was your purpose, or you thought you were supposed to invent something and then it came out or someone else created it, that just means that it's either your job to make it better and you haven't ascended to be able to make that happen yet, or you're supposed to be doing something completely different. And that's why these symptoms and signs are so important, because people get these signs and symptoms and they let fear and other things make them think that something else is going on when that's really not the case. Ascension has to do with you becoming better at who you are and who you are supposed to be on this planet. And ascension is about you going to a higher level, not just in your vibrations, meaning the amount of physical and spiritual energy your cells, your physical cells, your body cells can hold, but it's also about you understanding how you need to go higher in your thought processes so that you can be more on this planet. That doesn't happen at birth. Some people can be kid prodigies. Most people are not. Most of us have to ascend throughout our lifetime or over this lifetime, over this life path, so that we can do what it is we've come here to do. So there are quite a few different signs and symptoms when it comes to ascension. One of the first one is heightened awareness. I'll never forget the first time that I had a heightened sense of awareness. It was around the time that I was about 32 or 33 years old. I was at a pivotal point in my life where I was an avid churchgoer. And one of the things I realized was that after all of the years from childhood all the way up until the time that I was 32, I had gone to church consistently several days, sometimes every day during the week. One of the things that I realized while I was sitting in church one day was that I felt like all of a sudden I was looking down on my life, and I could see it as like in a movie. And it was almost like, if you've ever seen the movie, it's a movie with Jim Carrey where he's like the Truman Show or something like that, where he is the show and everybody's watching everything he does, and then he immediately has this awareness that his life is not real, right? And so this was kind of my awareness was kind of like that. And it was to the point where I was like, nothing's really different. My life isn't bad. I've got a great career. I've got my first house custom built when I was 25. So my life was thriving, but it just, there was no growth. It was like the same stuff over and over again, and there was very little excitement. And so and I was vacationing several times a year. It was just unexciting. And the one thing I remember saying was, this can't be it. There's got to be more to life than just getting up, serving in the church, going to work, making new friends. There's got to be so much more to life than just this. And I know you're probably watching this and saying, Angela, I wish I had that kind of life. But the reality of it is, everybody's path is different. I had worked so much to get to where I was so that I could live a very comfortable life. And even in living that, I didn't I didn't like it. I knew that I wasn't going to grow. And so, and the one thing that really got me was the fact that I went to church for spiritual growth, and that's just not the place where spiritual growth happens. Your discipline and your faith and your belief can grow in church, but your spiritual walk is a singular one. You are a single spirit, single soul living in a single body, from what I understand. And that journey is taken on your own. That journey is taken by you going in. That has nothing to do with a religious affiliation. You can fight me on this. It has nothing to do with the religious affiliation at all. So people can kind of mix those up and think that religion is spirituality. It is not. They can coexist, but they are not one and the same. You can choose religion. Spirituality, you really don't have a choice. You've got to find a way to evolve your soul through spirituality, and ascension happens when you start evolution of the soul. So I hope all that makes sense. And so that was the question I started to realize. I was like, I don't really have a spiritual life. Like, I have a church life. I volunteer and I do a lot here in church, and I'm a believer and I'm faithful, but my life isn't growing. There's no true depth to who I am. And that's what it made me embark on my spiritual journey. And then when I did, all of these symptoms started happening. My heightened sense of awareness, I could hear things that I'd never heard before. I could sense and see things that I'd never experienced. I could tell you step by step how to do something, and I've never lived it or experienced it, right? I am at the point now in my spiritual level and in my spiritual gifts where I can tune into things. So if a person is singing, or if I hear a voice singing or an instrument playing, I can sense and almost feel the vibration. If it is a person singing, I can actually literally see their vocal cords and the vibration of those chords, right? And it's even if I hear like a voice commercial without a person, I can not only visualize their vocal cords and them talking, but I can actually form a picture of the person who's actually speaking. Right? So your heightened sense of awareness and your spiritual gifts and intuition happen when ascension, these are on the heels of your ascension. And so you can go from being someone who knows nothing to absolutely being someone that paves this amazing way for so many other people. And you can do so with certainty. So your heightened sense of awareness is one of those things. It's an understanding of your purpose and your overall connection to the universe. This is what happened to me. But I had to actually ask the question, is there more? And not only did I ask the question, is there more? I actually stopped attending church because I understood quickly with my heightened sense of awareness that I was kind of in this cesspool of people who were very successful. I went to a very affluent church, very successful, a part of any kind of organization you can think of. Truett Cathy, who is the founder of Chick-fil-A, went to my church. and so it was, I'm surrounded by prominent entrepreneurs. And so it was, for me, they still felt to a certain degree, it still felt lost. Like I felt like I was not growing. They may have already grown and did everything that they need to do. And I might return to church later on because I can see how it might fit into my lifestyle. But at the time, I needed to pull away to understand, okay, this is what I need to get now, because I've given a lot of attention to this, and not necessarily going in the wrong direction, but it's like riding a bike that's not actually moving, like a stationary bike, right? And so we got to make sure we're not mistaking movement in place for progress, right? You have to look at your overall life and say, do I have a heightened sense of awareness and a connection to the universe and the world around me? How will I evolve and unfold my soul in this lifetime? That is so important. It is so important that we ask ourselves this question. The next thing, like I said, is increased intuition. And intuition is just your ability to be able to trust your own inner guidance. And that's why I said this evolution doesn't happen in church and inside of organizations. You must take this journey on your own. You must be able to ask those questions. Now, you can start to develop a relationship with a higher power in church and in different religious organizations. But when it comes to your soul, the journey is yours to take. And so another thing has to do with synchronicities, things happening at the same time, you noticing the time on the clock at the same time every time. And so synchronicities are just these beautiful coincidences. And the universe, I always say, it's kind of like God giving you a wink or a nudge or a nod, or the same way your parents, if you were afraid to get on the slide, they would say, go ahead, you got this. And so I think of it kind of in that way. And so I want you to start thinking of it like that too. The other piece to this are your emotional changes, the things that used to move you. And this can go a couple of different ways. For example, I noticed that the things that used to get me all rattled and make me want to say something, now I have nothing to say. I understand that whoever they are and whatever it is a part of this universal compliance. And with every yes and every no, it's God's way of telling me, go this way. So even if I get 10 no's a day for something I'm looking to start, I know that the amazing yes is coming soon, and I haven't gotten to that place yet. So I don't feel any way about the decision a person makes concerning me or concerning my business or concerning who it is they think or believe that I am. I understand that they're walking their path and they have to say their yeses and nos the same way I have to do mine. And so I don't feel any kind of way about anything. And so you have to get to that point as well. Your emotional changes will allow you to have a certain heightened sense of emotional intelligence. And when this starts to happen, that is your sign that your ascension is here and that God is calling you, or universal, the universal source is calling you to set and saying, I need you to be more stable in your emotional approach because it requires some intelligence on behalf of your being as we take you higher. And so and it also might be preparing you for what might be coming in the future, something that requires your emotional intelligence and your ability to be able to quiet your own emotions and your inner talking. And so that's the thing that I noticed. I noticed that in conversations now, or even when I encounter people, I'll say this, and who knows, they might watch this video one day, don't care. But I remember being at a specific event and we were playing a game. You guys know it's the holidays, people play games, showers, all this kind of stuff. We were playing a little bit of a game, and the person next to me, I say they were not supposed to say a specific word. And I asked the person a question and they answered it with the word we weren't supposed to say. And so I said, well, you've got to give me your item, because, and it's whoever collects the most items at the end. But I said, you got to give me your item because you said the word. And the person was like, no, I'm not going to give it to you because you tricked me. And I was like, well, that's kind of the point of the game, right? You're supposed to not say the word, right? And so I was just like, oh, well, you can keep it. I told her you can keep it because I know that people are on their path, right? And I know my level of emotional intelligence. And so I didn't care. Like I was indifferent about it. It's a game with a plastic toy, right? Who cares, right? And so the person, so someone else in the room who was orchestrating the game said, what's going on? And so now we've got the whole room's attention. And then the person sitting next to me says, well, she tricked me into saying ... And then the person who was over the party, who we were her guest, not the coordinator, but the person who's over the party says, well, that's kind of the point of the game. You're not supposed to say the word, but they can ask you or say anything to you to get you to say the word. And the person was like, no, I'm not going to give my item to Angela because she tricked me and I don't like that. And I've been nice about it, but I'm not going to be nice to her anymore. And so I could feel, now I grew up in the hood, all right? So I can feel my inner being shift, right? And I shifted because they were literally sitting next to me on the couch. And I shifted like in my seat, right? I could feel myself shift into a version of me that no one would enjoy, right? And so I also then heard my mind say, no, this is not who we are anymore. We are someone who is, your worth and your value is way too high to even entertain this energy. And it immediately let me see all of, I call them entities. They could be characteristics, personalities, people, things that this person was harboring or carrying from their childhood. And this is where ascension is really amazing, because it gives you insight that people will never actually tell you. And I know it's a gift that I have. And so I shifted in my seat, and then I immediately was able to kind of see all of who she was. And this is like a split second. And I said, you know what? It's okay. I was like, it's all right. It really is okay. You can keep it. And then she was like, well, no, they said I have to give it up to you. So here. And so she gave it to me reluctantly, and I just tossed it aside as if it didn't matter, and brought my attention back to the rest of the room and the game. And she said, well, you better make sure that no one else takes it. And I said, no, it's really not that big of a deal. And so I went ahead and continued my day. And so the next day, this person tried to get closer to me. What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. Where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. And for me, and this is another thing that comes with your heightened sense of awareness and emotional intelligence. And for me, once I've kind of seen all of a person, I know how to interact with them, and I give them very little access to me at that point. Right. And so this is where those things come into play. And so I had very few words with that person. That person began to see me really move and kind of speak to some other amazing people in the room. And I always know how energies like this operate. They feel left out, right? Once they really kind of see how I am and how helpful and great I am with people, then they feel left out. And so you've probably experienced this too. And at that point, I don't give a person a second opportunity to even get close to me. That's just me. You might operate a lot differently, but my emotional intelligence has shown me all I need to see. Now I make sure that the access that I give the person matches where they are in their growth and things like that. And so having these ascension symptoms are here, or signs of the world and the environment around you, gives you the opportunity to learn and grow. Now, the fifth thing that I want to mention is your changes in your sleep. So you're going to have sleep patterns that just get interrupted. I don't know any other way to say this. Now, if you're having issues with not getting asleep and insomnia and things like that, you definitely want to make sure you let your primary care physician know. But in general, these people report not being able to go to sleep, They also report having difficulty sleeping, and I mean literally being like wide awake. The other thing that they report when they do fall asleep is these intense visions, and they have these intense dreams where they feel real. So they wake up and they can still feel the emotions of it. This was something that I experienced a lot at the beginning of my ascension. And I'm not talking about like eons ago, right? This has been like, I'm 43, so started at 32 when I exited the church scene, and then for a little bit, about a decade now, a little over a decade now, I've been kind of going down this pathway and kind of being led. But the other thing that I want to say is just in the past, probably since 2017, 2018, is when my ascension really skyrocketed, and to the point where I'll tell you guys about some other things, and I'll do a spiritual, if you want me to, I'll do a spiritual gifts video, because people will say to me, how did you end up in my home, right? Or how did you end up standing in my room, or they'll say you visited me, or they'll swear that they saw me somewhere and I was never there, right? And so this is a part of ascension where it's called spontaneous bilocation. And so I can project, right? It might sound weird to you, but I can project myself into other environments, other places at will. And you can literally think it is me that you see standing there. You can even say, no, we took a picture together and it was not me. I was not there. And in many cases, I've never even met or encountered in person the people who report these to me. Now, you should think this was odd because maybe one person might say it, but several people over the past years have either inboxed me, texted me, or sent me an email or something saying, you were in my house, or, oh my God, I saw you in the grocery store. And they're somewhere in another state, and in some cases on a completely different continent. And so what I want to say about this is most of the time I was probably asleep when they saw me. And so, or I had some kind of interrupted sleep pattern when they claimed to have seen me, right? Or someone might say, I came to their house to take a nap. Weird, right? Weird. And they was like, well, but you left the blanket and you didn't even fold the blanket. I'm like, I've never seen you before in my life. I was not at your house. They're like, I saw you. I gave you food. I gave you a blanket. And I'm like, why would you? You don't know me, right? And so it's just these oddities, these things that happen, but these are gifts and things that are just going to happen. Now, I don't know why I would need that. I'm sure I'll need it at some point, someday, but the goal is to understand it and try to control it, right? But the changes in sleep patterns make these things happen, right? And so when you're up, you want to be intentional about what you do with your time, right? There are less reports now that when I'm awake, I'm intentional about my time and what I do while I'm awake. The other thing you want to be aware of, which is number 6, is these energetic sensations. I can't say this enough. Some people talk about this being like a Kundalini rising or something like that. That is a feeling, but that's almost the least of the feelings. And it's a feeling that snakes kind of up the spine, this surge of energy. And when it's really awake and it goes up your spine, it hits the throat, uh, third eye, and crown chakras, and then down the back of the head and at like a loop through the mouth of God's chakra. And so it gives kind of this surge of energy, like a tingling, a heat sensation, a warmth, or something moving through the body. Now there is this, but then you also want to be aware that there are other sensations. So for example, I just get these energetic surges, and it's almost like, oh God, you guys, it's so challenging to describe. The only thing I can describe it as is like this burst of energy. And it's a burst of energy that comes with a heightened sense of emotions. So it might be a burst of energy that makes me cry in gratitude. And there's not, it's just random. I'm not looking at anything. Because I don't really watch TV. I'm not looking at anything that would influence it, right? And there's also these bursts of energies that make me focus, right? And so, or focus in or hone in on something. And so you want to make sure that you're aware of these kinds of physical or environmental signs of the world and things around you. So these surges of energy come all the time, and they change how you feel immediately. They also come to encourage you. So, for example, if I'm feeling down about something or I had a week in business that didn't go my way, this it's like a surge of energy will hit me to remind me that I am at a higher vibration, and that I, not that I'm not allowed to have fears, but I can no longer allow them to control me. So you'll understand that once you are ascending, or once you have ascended, you will quickly find that there are some things that your energetic being, your soul, will no longer allow you to do. You will find that you have a heightened sense of energy and intelligence that you cannot pretend that you don't see or haven't experienced. You no longer have that choice, right? And so, can I be afraid of something? Possibly, but in general, I just am not, right? We're going to try it. We know that if a person says no, they're on their own path as well. We know that the decisions that other people make around us don't influence who we are and what we do. That we can continue to walk a path and create a world that makes sense for us, right? I hope you guys understand that. So these energetic sensations. The other one is a shift in perspective. All of a sudden, things that people do, just for lack of a better word, it just seems stupid, right? And you often, I'm sorry, they just seem stupid, right? They seem just like they lack the basic logical intelligence. And I feel like social media is rampant with that. But when you have ascended, you'll be able to see that these individuals either haven't in their journey yet, or haven't given the attention to do so in their journey yet. And so it's something to kind of keep in mind as well, and understand as well. And so the other thing that you'll have shifts in perspectives. Things that you thought were cool before, just no, absolute waste of time. And you'll start to see time as a life, as breath. And you'll start to see that you don't want to tie up your time with other people's foolishness. Like in the case of the game, I'm like, the less attention I give you, the less of my life you can tie up with this foolishness. These are my breaths that I'm taking, and you don't get any of them. Right. So, and it's the same with wanting to connect with me later on. I'm not giving you any of my life. You get none. You get zero breath out of me, right? You don't even get a gaze. No, there's no life coming from me going to you when I understand the work that still has to be done for you to be able to communicate properly with ascended people. That's just me. You guys might operate at a different space, or in a different way, and you might be called to talk to, operate, or be around people that have not ascended, and that's totally up to you. That's totally fine. And so you have to be able to do some energy management as well, though, because those people will eventually drag you back down and drag your energy back down. And so you'll understand your shift in perspective, right? Like in my case, breath, time are the same to me. Life and time are the same to me. I'm not wasting any of mine, right? And so it's a different perspective. I'm just not here to casually hang out. No, I'm either connecting for something that's in alignment with my purpose, or I'm really not going. Like, that's just me, right? And so it has to make sense for the life that I'm living now. And then the other thing is connection to nature and your desire for solitude. And these are something that you just feel like you have to do it, right? It's like fasting. Like, a person might say, I'm being led to fast. That is an ascension sign. You are being, a lot of times, being led to not put any energy of certain kinds of food in your physical body. And all of a sudden you understand, you see that less is more, that the less you put in, the less you have to manage, and the better you feel, because your body gets to truly heal, right? And so in addition to that, now that covers some of like the environmental signs. Now I want to take real quick a moment to cover some of the physical, some of the actual physical symptoms. And I can only go by the physical symptoms that I've encountered. But if you've encountered any of these physical symptoms, make sure you put them down in the comments below so that we can see. All right, or we can hear about them. So really quickly, some physical signs that might happen to your physical body, and your physical body symptoms, they can be a little bit scary. Like, you can feel like, like in some cases where I would have heart palpitations when I was doing a lot of inner heart work and inner heart healing, or understanding how to move through loving relationships, even though I had never truly experienced any. I would get these palpitations, I would get these flutters in my heart, and they would just come and go. And every single test I've ever had has come back normal, thank God, because I'm physically fit. But it's something that you need to be aware of. These are sometimes ascension symptoms, heart opening symptoms. The other thing that I encountered was rashes of unknown origin, right? I've only had two of those in my lifetime. The first one was just down my arm, right? Like down the shoulder and the side of the arm. And it just looks like, at first, it starts to look like chill bumps, like the bumps that you get when you're just kind of cold, but it's like a patch of them. And that doesn't really happen. You usually have a whole arm or a whole body part that has chill bumps on it. But this was like a patch of it, and it didn't go away. Like no matter what the temperature was, it stayed. I noticed it one morning, and I was like, but I'm not cold or anything like that. And it's just like this patch down my shoulder, and it stayed for about 24 hours. And then the next day it was just gone. Like it was never there. The another one that I encountered was similar, but it looked a little bit more scaly. And again, and this one was wrapped from shoulder to shoulder, like across my back, almost as if I had wings that were closed. Very odd. Down half my back, and wrapped around the same kind of shoulder area on both sides. And it was kind of scaly. It did not itch. It was not warm to touch. It was just there. And again, within 24 hours, the next day, it was gone. It was gone. And it was like it was never there. No scars, nothing, right? And so I had to start looking these things up, and I learned that these kinds of things are like ascension symptoms. These are things that happen when the body needs to purge in some kind of way. And obviously, the skin is the biggest organ in the body, and so things are going to happen to the skin when you're ascending. What essentially is happening is that your cellular being, who you are at this level, at this ascension, this vibration, where you currently are, cannot hold the capacity of where you need to go. It's like still wearing baby clothes and you're a teenager, right? It just doesn't fit. And so, in order for you to go to a higher level, sometimes, in many cases, purging of a specific body system or body systems combined must happen. And in order for that to happen, you're going to see some physical signs and symptoms. There are days that might come up for you that you might feel like, I just need to rest today. Take that time to do so. I have had cold and flu like symptoms, and I mean from drainage to stuffy nose to clogged ears. Happen. I wake up one day, I feel like that. Next day, it's gone. It's like it was never there. So you get these purges, and they don't last long, almost like these bursts of energy. It's almost like the universe doesn't want you, God doesn't want you confused that these are these purgings that are happening, and then they just go away. They just go away. And so I started looking at ascension symptoms because I was like, this has got to be something spiritual, because this does not make logical sense, right? And when it doesn't, and for me, in my case, after being in the medical field for over 20 years, I've seen a lot. It didn't make medical sense either. And it didn't make sense for me to jump up and run to a doctor, because by the time I thought about it, it was already gone. It wasn't there long enough for me to do anything about it. And so, and it never showed up. It never showed up again. So I will say that I have never had a repeat symptom, and I'm grateful for that. I've never had a repeat symptom. And so I'm generally always well, right? And so it's just, these are those kinds of symptoms that come up. Some people report not being able to lift their arm, or not being able to feel one hand or their fingers, and the next day nothing's wrong. It just comes and goes. right? And so, or they report feeling like one other thing I will say is I felt like there was, you know how you look at the sun, you guys go with me on this, okay? You know how you look at the sun and then you look away and you can see the light or the reflection of the sun kind of still in your eye, right? You see like the beam or the reflection of the light still there. There was one that was like that for me, and it lasted for about 3 days, and it didn't make sense. And it might have been sun one day, but it was completely cloudy the next day, and it was the same pattern. So it's like if you look at a light or you look at the sun, you might see a rounded pattern, but you see a specific pattern with beams and things like that. And when you look away, you can still see the pattern, like in your eye or out of the corner or in your peripheral vision. Well, this stayed for a long time, and I tried to shake it, right? Literally tried to shake my head to get rid of it. And it stayed for several days. And I remember, I wouldn't ever get worried about something like that. But one day I remember getting in my car and it was still there, but it was like it had moved in front of me and was almost like a halo on the windshield. And it just stayed there while I was driving. And so you're right, I usually communicate with source and God, and I communicate with angels around me. And I literally was like, who are you? Because, and that's just what came up like in my being, in my mind. Who are you? Do you need anything? Right. And and then it was like I asked this question in my mind. I don't necessarily use words, but I just kind of go with what my feeling and what my being wants to say, or what my being wants to understand or know. And that's the question that came up in my mind. And when I do that, I get an answer. And the answer was saying that it was just an ancestor, and they just kind of wanted to check me out. Like they just wanted to like look at me or something like that. And that's why they moved around from the side to the front so that they could like sit with me or be with me. And it was just intriguing, And I didn't need a guru to tell me this. I just have gotten such a heightened sense of intuition and spiritual awareness that I can ask these questions that just come up without fear, right? So you might have encountered some of these things as well. There are things that I just hear, and I'll tell my son, I said, did you say something? Did you say da, da, da? And I'm specific with the wording. He says, no, I've been asleep. I have not said anything. I said, okay, that's great. And so he understands at this point because I explain it to him. And he's like, well, he might say, well, yeah, I did see something, or I did hear something. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine. So we don't, so I don't shy away from these conversations with my teenager, because other people are gifted in different ways, right? And if he has questions, then I answer those questions. So yeah, so rashes, palpitations, I get surges of temperature, right? Then these aren't like hot flash. I'm not on hot flash or anything like that, y'all. I don't do that, right? And God bless the people that do. But these are surges of temperatures, meaning that I can feel like even in my bedroom, I will feel just a wind. There's nothing turned on, but there's a wind kind of out of nowhere that I feel. And no windows open or anything like that. It's just surge of energy, surge of wind, in different places and things like that. And it just brings chills all over me, right? And so these are the things that happen when it's like it's time. It's time to take you to a new level. And I love those things. I don't shy away from them. And I don't always need an explanation for them. I just understand that God communicates with our humanness in a different way. And we have to be open to that. And we have to be honest enough with ourselves to say, this is what's happening, and I'm okay with it. Give me the message, right? Give me the game, right? Like we say back in the day. But so yeah, I hope you got something amazing out of this video. What you want to do if you're experiencing any of these signs and symptoms, and if they're concerning to you, definitely seek professional help for those things. If you are someone, and sometimes I'm gonna say this too, because some people think that can misunderstand. Now, don't get me wrong, depression is real. But some people can misunderstand depression they could think it's depression when it's really a purging of sad, angry, mad, upset, and low vibrational emotions that a person might have. And so one of the things we distinguish in our program here at Legacy is the difference between the diagnosis of depression and depressive mood disorder, things like that. Those are two very different things, and they have different signs and symptoms, right? Now, don't get me wrong. If you've got any of those, definitely seek the proper professional help for those things. However, they can also be a sign of ascension that needs you to purge, that's requiring you to purge before you go to that next level. And it's just God giving you the time to let it all go. And in letting go, casting it off, casting it away, ask me how I know this, right? I know this. Trust me. I battled depression for many, 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 many years in my teens and in my 20s. And I was someone who did not know that this was part of that. But in doing so, I can now get beyond it or get past it, right? And not let it affect anything that has to do with me at all. And so, one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is the universe always, in all things, wants you to feel everything and go right on through it. And so remember that whatever it is that's happening will pass, right? Wherever you're sitting now, whatever you're doing right now, you won't be at some point. Feel all of it and go all the way through it and say, I'm ready for the next thing. That's the point of your life. Okay. That's the progression. And if you're sitting in something, doing something, you work somewhere, you're part of something, and you're not progressing, there is no movement, ask why. Ask, is there more? And then go after that more, right? See the signs, understand the world around you, and go after that more. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already yet, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe like this.